It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to a BW Dialogue. Today we're discussing a book whose time has come as the cinema halls start opening up post-lockdown. Individuals and families start going to movies to watch the entertainment on a big screen. We've been watching it on a small screen over the last 11 months. Today we have a journalist who spent more than editor, who spent more than 3 decades in journalism. This is our second book. She did a book, The Bad Man on Gulshan River, and this book, Matinee Men, is the reason we've assembled here to talk to Ms. Roshmila Bhattacharya, who's the author of Matinee Men. Thank you, Roshmila, for joining us. And give us a sense, how did this book come about? What was the genesis of this book?
Thank you, Dr. Batra, for having me on your show. It's always a pleasure to watch you. The idea of the book was that normally when we read about film stars, we generally tend to know about their careers and basically the films they're doing, the roles they're doing. But in the course of my career, I got to know some strange little stories about the films. And also got to learn a little bit about the men behind these matinee men. So the idea was to present them, to kind of take the readers beyond the grease paint, the glitz, the glamour, and present the actors as I see them.
Okay, so now let me ask you, let us show the cover of the book so that the readers can buy it. I mean, it gives away some of the matinee men on the cover. You have Amitabh Bachchan in his young angry avatar. You have Shah Rukh Khan in his charming romantic pose. You have Amir Khan from Lagan, and you have the superstars of yesterday. So let me first ask, who are the matinee men in the book? You looked at Bollywood through the eyes of these matinee men. So who are the matinee men in the book?
So basically the idea was to move from one decade to the next, through one genre of cinema to the next, and kind of take certain actors who were emblematic of that decade. So we start off with Dadamuni Ashok Kumar, we move on to Dilip Kumar, then there's Devanand, Shami Kapoor, Dharmendra, Amitabh Bachchan, Mithun Chakravarti, Farooq Sheikh, the 3 Khans, Amir, Shah Rukh, and Salman, then John Abraham, and another Khan, that's Irfan.
Yeah, and I want to go back on when the book was conceptualized, because I was thinking if Sushant Singh Rajput was alive, possibly he would have made it to your book. But I think you did the book much before, you conceptualized much before his last year's untimely demise. But now let's focus to the contents in the book, these matinee men. Give us your favorite chapter. I know for you, all these matinee men are superstars and of equal attention. But tell us a bit about each one of them. Let's start with Dadamuni Ashok Kumar, who has enthralled all of us, enthralled my parents, enthralled me and my generation. I'm not sure my children follow him, but I can say, he's been a constant source of inspiration and entertainment, and he was very versatile in the kind of roles he did. So give us an interesting tidbit that is in the book about Ashok Kumar.
So I don't know how many people know it, that Dadamuni was also a homeopath. And he has cured everything from, an outbreak of pimples to cancer. And a girl came to him with gangrene, and the doctors had told her that her leg would have to be amputated. And as a last-minute measure, the parents brought her to Dadamuni, and he told me that, I gave her some medicines. I don't know what I gave her. I gave her some pills, and she was cured, and all she lost was the toe of her left leg. So this is something that I don't know how many people know, but I've been to his bungalow, and I've seen this little wooden box with rows of small bottles of pills, homeopath pills, and he would just take out something and give it. So from Rati Agnihotri to many of his co-stars, stars, he's treated them while working with them.
Fantastic. Tell us a bit about, now he's in heaven, he's looking down on us, and I'm sure if he knows about our conversation, tell us a bit about Irfan Khan. I mean, Irfan Khan gained international acclaim. Of course, he was very loved in India. But give us some interesting anecdotes about Irfan Khan.
So with Irfan, it was never an interview. It was just a conversation. So I would just go, we would talk about various things. The conversations would last for an hour and a half. Then I would sit down to transcribe it. I would put in a little, whatever was relevant to the film or the role that he was doing. And a lot of it was left over for just for me. It was always a pleasure interviewing Irfan. And I remember the last interview with Irfan, he was very unwell and Hindi medium was to release. And the publicist asked me that, will you send a list of questions to Irfan? He will try to answer them, either voice notes or he'll get someone to write his answers. And for 2 days, I just sat in front of my computer trying to frame questions because I had never framed questions for Irfan. And finally, I wrote him a letter. And I said, Irfan, I can't frame questions, so I'm writing you a letter. And in the course of that letter, I told him how my daughter was planning to go abroad for higher studies, and since he had done a film like Angrezi medium, it was Angrezi medium, not Hindi medium. And I said, since he's done a film like Angrezi medium, what does he feel about higher education? And in that way, I wove in those questions into that letter.
So it was like you having a conversation with Irfan about things impacting you and him, and in the context of the movie being released.
Yes. And he used to always call me Roshmila. He said, it reminds me of Rasgullas, your name. So I said, I don't know if you remember Roshmila, but this is what I'm sending you. And within a week, I got the answers. They were very Irfan. And he said, he spoke about everything. He spoke about some of the films that were close to his heart, like Pan Singh Tomar, Warrior. And he told me that, of course, I remember Roshmila. I remember that you live very close to my place. And I would keep telling you that I'll come across and have fish curry, and you never invited me. So I told him that the next time you're here, you're definitely coming home for fish curry. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to treat him to a meal.
Okay. Now let me, I can go on asking you about Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Amitabh Bachchan, and everybody else. But before I do that, let me ask you, is there a common thread that runs across all the Matinee men? Of course, they were all unique. They were different. They are different than each other, and they have their own idiosyncrasies and style. Is there a common thread that runs through them?
I would say that they are all superstars of their generation. That is what links them, and they have they're specialized in something. Whether it's Shah Rukh, who is seen as the lover boy of all. For 30 years he's been the lover boy. Or Dada Moni, who was the first anti-hero of Hindi cinema. Kismet was, he played an anti-hero, and it created a huge ruckus at that time. People said that it was going to make the youth immoral and all. So, from the anti-hero to the kindly grandfather, his career has charted.
I remember the song called Rail Gari,
Yes.
Ashirwad. Ashirwad. So,
absolutely.
He was literally the grandfather, so to say, kind of persona.
Yes.
Very, very nurturing, very, he would tell stories, in his characters also. So clearly, he came across that. And it was a big family of superstars that Ashok Kumar came from.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We can go on. Kishore Kumar was, his family was full of superstars. Tell me about Amitabh Bachchan.
Mr. Bachchan is someone who is, the best thing about him is that he's extremely punctual. If he gives you a particular time, he ensures that he's there on the dot. Of course, a lot of people know this, but the fact is that if he's even 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late, he will come and he's profusely apologetic. He'll tell you exactly why he's late. He will ensure that you're taken care of. And the best part is that he is he's so courteous. He will come all the way down to the gate to drop you off. He never dodges any questions. He will answer everything. And once you're sitting in front of him, he'll give you the time, all the time you need to ask him what you want. Of course, there's always the light shining in your eyes because he ensures that there's a camera recording the interview. So I guess, he's the one who kind of taught me not to get intimidated by the spotlight. That's one thing. And I see another part of him is that he's wonderful as a father, as a grandfather. I remember once we were trying to get in touch with Abhishek for an interview, and he was shooting for players somewhere in the North Pole, and we were not able to get through to him. So Mr. Bachchan was somewhere abroad. I think he was in New Zealand or Australia somewhere. So I sent him a mail saying that we're trying to get in touch with Abhishek. If in case you're able to get through to him, if you can send this mail across. He couldn't get through to him, but what he did was he answered some of the questions and he sent them back. Certain questions which he had the answers to, he said this, and certain things which he didn't have the answers to, he says, I can't speak on behalf of Abhishek. So we got an interview from him, but we couldn't get Abhishek. But we
how nurturing, how really sensitive and nice of him. Now, give me a sense about Salman Khan.
So Salman Khan loves to intimidate journalists. The first thing he'll try to do is he'll try to see if you are getting scared of him, and if you do, then he enjoys it. So the first thing you should do is to be very normal with Salman, and once he's gotten out of that, once he gets to know that okay, you're cool, then he'll sit down, he'll answer all your questions, and God forbid if anyone tells him don't answer anything on this topic, he will ensure that he answers something about that. You can't give instructions to Salman. He is like Peter Pan. A child, you should just let the child be, and you'll get the best of interviews. I love interviewing Salman because he's so unpredictable. You don't know what you're going to get from Salman, but you know that whenever you meet Salman, it will be an experience.
Okay. Now let me ask you a larger question which is related to Indian cinema. It is related to the superstars. The last 11 months of pandemic, till a couple of weeks back, the cinemas were closed. We saw Master coming and doing 200 crores plus business. So clearly want to go to cinemas. I went to a cinema on Saturday nights, two of my friends, and there were 4 more people, 7 people watching a movie. So do you think cinemas will come back in full bloom soon? Will we see people thronging to cinemas, or we got used to consuming content on a small screen?
I've the last couple of weeks I've been stepping out and been to the mall, and I see it thronging with youngsters. And most of our audience in cinemas, about almost 60-70% of the audience are young people. So I feel that if they can go to the mall, if they can go to have a burger or a pizza, I'm sure they'll come and watch a movie. Of course, the movie will have to be something which will draw them. So I think we have, in a couple of weeks, we will have Rui Afza, which is Rajkumar Rao and Janvi Kapoor in a double role. Dinesh Vijan's films are always have catered to a cross-section of the audience. So I think it's an interesting way to start to get people to the theatres, and following which we'll have Suryavanshi, Rohit Shetty and his Bang Bang, his Cars, and this time we have 3 heroes.
You're saying superstars bring people to movies, good storytellers bring, and since good story and good stars are coming back to the big screen, you will see both from a nostalgia and from the fact that there is big content pull, cinema goers start going to cinemas again. Is that what you're saying?
I would expect that. I think it's been a year of watching content on in your living rooms on OTT. Much as the content is extremely good, some of the stuff that we've watched is really good. But I think people yearn for cinemas because it is an experience going to the movies. You go with your family, friends. You enjoy the popcorns and the snacks in the break. You want to watch the film on the big screen. It brings the stars. It makes the stars alive for you when you're watching it in your home. It's not that experience. Wonder Woman has had a simultaneous release across the world, except of course India, and people did go and watch Wonder Woman. They did go and watch Master, as you mentioned. I'm sure they will go back and watch Suryavanshi. Rohit and his producers have waited for over a year to bring the film back to the theaters. They've not gone the OTT route, and I'm sure that the wait will be worth it. And almost immediately afterwards, I think 83 will come, because they've also been waiting for a long time. And I'm sure, with India doing so well in series, people will go back to the theaters to watch, cricket, the 83 World Cup being recreated.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let me bring in my senior editorial colleague, Mr. Rohil Amin and Ms. Urvi Srivastava into the conversation. Rohil, you'd like to ask Roshmila a question? Urvi, keep your question ready. Rohil, first you and then Urvi.
Great. Hi, thanks. Am I audible enough?
Yes.
Yes, Rohil.
So, I just want to understand that the entertainment journalism, the kind of dynamics between the star and the journalist has been very different. Is there a certain kind of uneasiness to it? How do you bring that ease to it in your experience?
And just if I may add to Rohil's question, that you can't ask real questions to start sometimes.
Exactly.
You have to be scripted in your interviews,
Absolutely.
if I may.
I beg to differ here, because I've never scripted any of my interviews. As I said, I make it a conversation, because very early in my career, I realized those days we had dictaphones, and they were pretty bulky stuff. And I realized that as soon as I would switch on the dictaphone, the person opposite me would get very conscious, and the answers would become very rehearsed. So the first thing I would do was go and hide the dictaphone under some cushion or something, and I would pretend that we were having a conversation. Now it's easier because you have a mobile phone. It's easier to hide that. But once they kind of, if you're going to ask them questions, if you're going to refer to a list of questions, it's very difficult, because then they are very conscious. But if you can just bring them into the conversation, you can ask them a lot of things. I think they're quite open about a lot of things. Even stars who are not known to be very open, I found that even they have been quite uninhibited once they get over the fact that they are being interviewed.
I have one last question. There used to be this time when you go to the set and you get the juicy stories, and now with the coming of a whole lot of entertainment mediums, is that a missing factor in doing that entertainment journalism? Has it become a little bit, if I may use the word, a little bit boring now? Because at that time you would go build those bonds. Now it's not there.
This is exactly the reason I wrote this book, because when my younger colleagues would go out for interviews, they basically have 10 minutes, and there's a publicist there telling them that, okay, now you have 8 minutes, okay, now you have 7 minutes. So that way you can never get to understand a star. When I was in my 20s, we had to go and hang out on the sets, and whenever the actor had time between shots, he would come and speak to you. Often you would spend the whole day on the sets, because there wasn't just me waiting to interview him. There would be a producer waiting to narrate a story. There would be a director wanting to discuss the next day's scene, and there would be friends dropping by. So you got to see them, in a different milieu. After a while, They stopped seeing you as a journalist. You became a friend. They told you a lot of things. So, like in the Shah Rukh chapter, it's about how, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's almost midnight. My last train has gone, and I have no idea how I'm going to get back home. And he comes back and he says, what happened? So I said, I don't know where I'm going to spend the night because I won't be able to reach home. And he sends his driver in his car to drop me all the way back to Vashi, which is New Bombay, which was almost an hour and a half. And I asked him, how will you get back? So he said, don't worry, I'll take a ride with someone. So that was the kind of equation we shared. And that's really missing today, because I feel that many of my colleagues will never get to know these people who they interview. They will go with 10 questions, they will come back with answers to 8, and they will hardly get to know the star.
Perfect.
Okay,
Right.
Urvi, you would like to ask Roshmila a question? Urvi Srivastava? We don't have Urvi, or maybe he's too engrossed in listening to us. So let me ask you my last question before we sign off. We cannot not talk about Shah Rukh Khan. You talked about this one incident. Tell us one more incident about Shah Rukh Khan, which is in the book.
So there are lots of, the best thing about Shah Rukh is that a film, when the film ends, for him, the film doesn't end with the 18th reel or the 19th reel. For Shah Rukh, he takes the story forward in his mind. I remember that, I had asked him that, what do you think happened at the end of Pardes? And he said, Arjun and Ganga, they get married. Arjun gets busy with his work. Ganga begins to feel ignored, and maybe one day she'll walk out on him. Then I said, what happens at the end of Yes Boss? And he said, Yes Boss, both of them again get married, and then they have a child, and my character is telling the child that, if I had not married your mother, maybe she would have been a millionaire's wife by now, and I would have had my own ad agency. And then with a sinking feeling, I asked him, what happens at the end of Dilwale Dulhania? And he said, I see Raj and Simran still together, still having a lot of fun. So that's how for Shah Rukh, he takes his stories forward. So there's always a sequel running in his mind. And that's what makes him the Badshah, I guess.
Good. We look forward to a sequel to Matinee Men. Possibly it'll be called the Matinee Girls.
Matinee Women. Yes,
Matinee Women.
Yes.
So we wish you luck. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. All the best for your book. We'd like to show the book again on the screen so that our readers and viewers can buy that and enjoy the interesting tidbits of information and get to know these superstars through those. So Matinee Men, A Journey Through Bollywood by Roshmila Bhattacharya. Would strongly urge you to buy it, read it, and enjoy it. Thank you so much, Roshmila. All the best. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's always a pleasure watching you.
Very
and thank
well.
you so much.
Thank you.